It's official. You decided you want a Mazdaspeed3, but they stopped making them in 2013, so now you gotta buy a used car, and whether you're a first time or 10th time used car buyer, it's a very scary process, and you need to know your way under the hood and around the car, so I'm gonna help you exactly with that. You show up to your first car you found on Craigslist or wherever it is at a dealership or whatever, and just look at the outside. You know, if there's curb rash on the wheels, they don't know how to drive or they don't care about the car at all. I'm out already. If there's door dings all over the place, they were not in the no ding squad. They did not care to park far away from cars and get away from door dings. That is a sign of how much they cared about the car. So be aware of those things. Look for scratches, things like that on the roof. If it has a rack, look for scratches all over the roof from like gear they put. You can just tell kind of how they took care of it. Around from there, just make sure all the bumper clips and everything like that, all the bumpers are lined up. After that, I mean, just moving under the hood, you need to know exactly where everything's at. Starting from left to right, the first thing you can look for is an aftermarket passenger motor mount. This is a JBR one right here, and if you see an OEM, this is what it looks like. After that, you know that the belt is right here and the alternator is right down back there. Moving right, you have in the middle the top mount intercooler. This is the stock one. A aftermarket top mount looks like this. And if you have a front mount intercooler, which the intercooler would be down in here, you could probably see it instead of those horns there, you'd have an intercooler. When you have one of those, the top of the motor is exposed and there is an intake or a intercooler piping right across here, and it looks like this. Moving to the right side of the intercooler, this is where the bypass valve or blow-off valve, whatever they have on it, is located. I have a Synapse bypass valve, and you know it's a bypass valve when there's a hose at the bottom and that air recirculates. If there's no hose out of the back of it, then it is a blow-off valve. These cars come stock with bypass valves, so if they do have a blow-off valve, then you need to make sure that they are on a tune or something, or else the car will run rich kind of in some areas. Moving forward a little bit, you have the short ram intake. If this is a stock car, it'll have a box right here, that's the intake. And the bright red pipe right there, that is the turbo inlet pipe. And that goes down back there into the turbo. It's kind of really hard to see. And then you have your battery box, your fuse box, and up underneath in there, right here is a short shift plate. I'm gonna try and show you guys. Yeah, so here is a JBR short shift plate. You can look to see if it has one of those. And this is a transmission motor mount down in here, and the rear motor mount is under the car, under there. I'm just gonna show you a picture right now. This is what a stock one looks like, and this is what a Cobb rear motor mount looks like. You can look under the car yourself and see if there is one, if they told you there is or not. Another thing is if the car is lowered and you want to check if the fenders are rolled, you can just, usually it's just the back ones. You can go up underneath right here, and there's like a solid edge. It's like, you know, this wide, but if they're rolled, it'll be folded in. And just look on the edge right here, because sometimes when they roll the fenders that they did a crappy job, there will be like paint chips and stuff like that. Back looking at the engine bay, if you go up here, these clips are sometimes bad. See on mine, it doesn't clip right here. If you see this on a Speed 3 when you're looking at it, that means they've taken off the bumper quite a few times, like I have, to fix different things or install things. And all it needs is a $10 bracket, which I will be having a video soon replacing this, so you no longer have this issue of the fender kind of just not sitting in place. But you can just push it underneath and it'll look fine for a little bit, but it'll come undone when you hit a bump or whatever. Oh, before I forget, if you do feel the need, the dipstick to check the oil is right here. It's this guy right there. And the coolant level, there's no, like, it's not like a regular, you know, car I've seen in the past where there'll be a radiator cap. This is the cap right here, and you fill the reservoir to the line down there. The max is at the top right here, so you can just open this and look in there, or look from the side to see where the level's at. And then if you go back here, this is the brake fluid. You can check to see if the level is appropriate on that, looking through the clear reservoir. Don't forget to look at the bottom of the front bumper for any scrapes or anything like that, just like that one right there, just so you're aware of everything on the car. Now that you know your way under the hood, I want to talk about one of the more common topics with these cars. It is the high pressure fuel pump internals. Does it have it? Does it not? I don't know. How do I know? So what the deal with these are is that when you do not have high pressure fuel pump internals and you have modifications on the car will run lean because the fuel pump cannot put out enough fuel. So with Gen 1s, I know they can handle an intake for sure without high pressure fuel pump internals. Gen 2, I personally had a short ram intake on my car without high pressure fuel pump internals and it started running lean. So Gen 2s are a little bit more of a problem than Gen 1s. With that being said, you need to go into the car, depending on what modifications you have, you need to keep all this in mind. Go in the car, go inside by the driver cockpit, look to see if there's an access port, which looks like this. If it is not there, then you need to ask them right away. Say, hey, did you ever have a Cobb access port on this thing? Did it have an off-the-shelf tune or a pro tune? And if they say, I've never had an access port on it, I've never had it tuned or anything, and they have more than an intake, just beware, you're taking a risk. Say, hey, does it have high pressure fuel pump internals? If they don't even have it listed or anything, just ask them. If they say, I don't know, then good grief, don't even buy from them. But if it's completely stock and nothing's touched, then it should be safe. That car stock is so limited that it's hard to beat up the engine. The only thing that you can do is really just romp on it all the time, which is just general wear. And the clutch obviously will take a lot of wear if they burn it all the time. So as long as the clutch is pretty stiff, you should be good. But yeah, when you start modifying it, you need to make sure that it was on at least an off-the-shelf tune from Cobb or something while it was being modified. So if they say, hey, yeah, I did have it, all I did was sell the access port for quick cash because they're worth $400 to $500, then say, hey, okay, what map were you running? Were you running a stage 2 off the shelf, a stage 1 or a stage 3, or did you have it pro tuned or something? If they say, they should be educated enough, they've had the car long enough, they know what they're doing, they'll tell you right exactly what the situation is. And from there, you just need to, if you really like this car, buy it, and then, go buy an access port, plug it in right away, and monitor all those levels and make sure that your fuel pump is pushing out at least 2,000. If you've got, a bunch of modifications, if it's a stage 2 or anything. Let me summarize that again really quick. If the car has modifications on the hood more than an intake, I would stress about it. And if they did not have any tune on it and there was no access port and it's on a stock tune still, then you need to just run. If they're, if they said, I did have an access port on it, I just sold it, but the, stage 2 or like the pro tune that I had is still in the ECU, then you should be okay. I would get an access port immediately and plug it in to make sure all your levels are right. You're still taking a risk. Honestly, just try and find somebody that has an access port so you can check all the levels and everything like that. The next thing you need to look out for is the turbo seals. If the car has more than 40,000 miles on it, I recommend doing 2 of these tests. 1 of 2 of these tests. First thing you can do is let the car idle for 10 to 30 minutes and look for blue, whitish, thick smoke coming out the back. It'll be obvious that it's oil burning. Second thing you can do is hold a white piece of paper to the exhaust, and if there's any, if you're really worried about it, do this. Hold the piece of paper right outside the exhaust pipe while it's idling, and if there's like oil specks hitting it and you can tell that it's for sure oil, then definitely that turbo is shot. So in that matter, what you can do is say, is it worth putting another $1,000 to $1,200 into for a good turbo, or do I want to pass on this car and look for another one? Just be ready to dump money in if you want to, because just because the turbo seals are bad doesn't mean the engine's, in bad shape. Turbos go out first usually. Another thing, if the car is lowered, ask if it has rear camber arms if it is not listed in the listing, because, when you don't have rear camber arms, the wheels are going to be, pretty aggressive camber, and that is just bad for tire wear. You can get those later, so just something to be aware of. Ask them basic questions like, when was the last time you changed the spark plugs? When is the last time you changed the transmission fluid? Have you ever? Some people have never, and they'll have 100,000 miles on the car. Overall, just, be aware of how knowledgeable they are about the car, how much they're willing to tell you. Are they proud of their car? Are they ashamed of how it looks? Just be aware of all those things, the inside and the outside, how they all come together. And don't just go for the first car that you look at. Be very, very picky with these. I don't want you guys to waste your money. I bought my car with 23,000 miles in 2015. It is a 2012. It was completely stock, and I looked at so many of them that were modded, and like guys had sold the access port and all that, and I had no idea what I was doing, and I wish I would have known this information. So, you know, just be aware of the whole access port situation with the tune and know what's under the hood and what kind of modifications it has. Ask them tons of questions. But overall, buying a stock one is a very good idea because you know exactly what you're getting. The cars are very limited. It's hard to beat them up other than the clutch. So I hope this helps. You know, if you guys are new here, welcome. And my name's Cameron Alford, and I will see you guys in the next video. Later.